In the heart of the Amazon, a battle is brewing. On one side, Petrobras, Brazil's state-run energy firm, eyes the promise of rich oil reserves off the northern coast, a region known as the Equatorial Margin. On the other, indigenous communities and government bodies stand firm, their resistance against the oil giant's exploration project growing stronger by the day. Just last year, environmental agency IBAMA denied Petrobras a license for exploratory drilling in the Foz do Amazonas area. The reason? Possible harmful impacts on indigenous groups and the sensitive coastal biome. Petrobras, however, didn't take this lightly. An appeal was lodged, and it came with significant political backing. Brazil's president, Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, stated last September that Brazil should be able to research the region's potential resources, citing national interest. Echoing this sentiment, Energy Minister Alexandra Silveira stressed that it is Brazil's right to know the offshore field's potential. This political support has fueled Petrobras's optimism about obtaining a license to drill off the coast of Amapá state. In a bold statement, Petrobras CEO Jean-Paul Prates told local politicians and oil executives last month, "Get ready, Amapá, because we are arriving." He labelled the Equatorial Margin as perhaps the last frontier of the oil era for Brazil, and plans to start drilling there in the latter half of this year or even sooner. Despite the optimism, the situation remains complex. Rodrigo Agostinho, IBAMA's chief, stated that a decision would be made in early 2024. However, labour disputes within the agency have since slowed the pace of environmental licensing. Resistance against Petrobras is not limited to government bodies. Indigenous communities have rallied together, and their opposition is palpable. Interviews with local leaders and visits to indigenous villages reveal a collective effort to halt Petrobras's drilling ambitions. Adding to Petrobras's woes, the Indigenous Affairs Agency FUNAI asked IBAMA regulators last December to conduct additional studies to assess impacts. These studies would be required before IBAMA can decide whether to accept Petrobras's appeal. The Council of Chieftains of the Indigenous People of Oiapoque, representing more than 60 indigenous villages in the area, called for federal prosecutors to intervene in July 2022, alleging a violation of their rights. Brazilian prosecutors, mandated to protect indigenous peoples, recommended in September 2022 that IBAMA withhold the license until local communities have been formally consulted. As we summarise today's report, it is clear that the battle between Petrobras and indigenous communities over oil drilling in the Amazon is far from over. The stakes are high, with economic interests on one side and the protection of indigenous rights and the environment on the other. This conflict not only affects Brazil, but has implications for the global community as we grapple with the pressing issues of energy security, environmental protection, and respect for indigenous rights.